Hi everyone, my name is Helios. This is the first time I'm giving this lecture on humor in Congress. So real quick, I want to talk about some of my accomplishments. I got a handshake from Adam Jacoby once. I was once in a group hug with Quest Sandell. Nick Ostheimer put his arm around me in a photo, and Breck told me I'm funny, so that's why I'm doing this lecture. And I'm also taller than Devarsh Borah. Here are my actual debate accomplishments. You probably heard them. It's like the third time you guys are hearing this joke by now, so all right, let's get to the actual content. Yeah, I'll just continue my disclaimer that I gave earlier on what Congress really is as an event. It's a very performative event at the high level. And I think you should start performing as if you were performing in a very high level round and practice doing that because it is very unconventional in the sense that you are injecting a lot of personality into an event that at the same time rewards some level of debate. So that's the same like concept you would apply here. Like the best way to do Congress is just amplifying your real personality in real life because that's more authentic and you will do much better trying to be yourself than trying to be like a character trait that you're not. So just being funny is not for everyone because not everybody is funny in real life. Like I have on here, there's going to be more awkward debate kid energy if you try to force a joke. Um, your audience, maybe your judges will cringe, and if your judges will cringe, you will lose aura and you will lose ranks. Many debaters are good without being funny, and that could be you. But if you are funny in real life, here's just some tips on how you can add that humor into Congress without getting dropped by your judges. Okay, so here's the point in being funny. It's just to be memorable in the round. It will make you come off more confident if you can make like a witty, sarcastic joke, putting like an argument down. If you can refute it and like make it seem absurd, that's like a cool thing to do. It also gives you a lot of personality, like which is important for sems, right? A lot of good speakers get out of prelims. So you might have noticed that like in your semifinal rounds, a lot of good speakers don't break because everybody has like great delivery, decent arguments, right? So you will need like this X factor, your personality, and that can be humor. Okay, things not to do with humor. I want to emphasize this very hard because like frequently if you overdo humor or like you're cringe with your humor, it is like worse than if you were to just like not do humor in the first place. So this is overdoing humor. Just remember as a rule of thumb, you're still a congressperson. Like in TOC finals on my second speech, I talked about like, the group chat getting leaked. And like I don't like the audience laughed, right? Like 'cause this is like a joke for like younger people. And then like your judge panel, like they're usually like low key old. Like they're usually like teachers, like debate coaches, like middle-aged people. They don't get those kind of jokes. And I'll talk about like why this is bad. Like one, you just look unprofessional. You still want to look like a real politician. Um, just make sure you're being politician-y in the jokes that you're making. I think a good example of this is Ronald Reagan's use of humor. Like it's funny, like for his audience of people who like attending like political conventions, but it's like a good rule of thumb as to what your joke should do. Um, and then unless you're like at a round robin or like a tournament that like you don't really have to take seriously, then like don't go overboard. Round robins like work fine with like these TikTok brain rot jokes because at least at Harvard round robin, the judges were college students. So these types of jokes actually worked way better than like these traditional politician-y jokes. But clever jokes that I would say the best kinds of jokes are like well-written, clever jokes that are well relevant to the round that anybody would like appeal to, regardless of age. Okay, second one, don't be cringe. Really deliver the joke. I think this is the big one. Really deliver the joke like you believe in it. Like if you don't believe in it at all and like you don't even seem like you think it's funny, it's gonna be like a silent room and you tried to deliver a joke and nobody laughed. This is another example of a forced joke. I just don't want to read it out loud because it like makes me cringe a little bit. But like this is if you're cringe with your jokes, right? If you have like a bad joke, you didn't deliver it properly, or like you just tried to force a joke that's like canned and absolutely irrelevant, like people are gonna know. I think people are very good BS detectors. And like it'll just like be the opposite of the point of a joke, which is to give you memorability, confidence, aura in the round. So all right, TLDR, what not to do. Don't be unprofessional, don't be cringe. Your judges will drop you. Okay, let's talk about what actually to do. I think there are four criteria that make a joke funny. The first one is it has to be unexpected and actually original. Whenever you end a round, the PO's probably been like, "Oh, we're more productive than real Congress," but like nobody ever laughs at that because we expect them to say it. We've heard them say it 100 times. It was funny the first time, but we've heard it a billion times, so it's just not funny. The second thing on unexpected, the funniest jokes like are slightly out of pocket. Like they will push the boundaries of what we think are like conventional in Congress a little bit. They're like low key out of pocket, but like don't push it too much. Just like think back to like the politician Ronald Reagan example. The second one is if it's relevant, then like it will be much funnier. Like your funniest jokes, like with your friends, probably are like inside jokes, right? Because those are relevant, like inside jokes to your friend group. Same thing, like sort of applies to like Congress. Don't run a canned joke every time. Um, like like all rhetoric, it will be best when it's witty and relevant to the round. When it like that's when it's most memorable. If it's not totally relevant like to the round, I think like the best jokes are round specific. If you make fun of like a mishap that happened in the round, like saying like a tournament's venue is too small or like just dissing like tab room for being slow, like those are examples of like tournament specific, but I still wouldn't do those because I guess some judges get offended when like they like you diss on tab room. I've heard of that happening. The other thing is like, like those are too common of experiences, but just to give you an idea, of like what you might make fun of. Also, another thing, like, yes, you can reference other people's jokes in the round. Um, but like don't just repeat the joke. Like people do that so much in high level or like high level rounds, like final rounds, right? Like it just makes the joke not funny anymore. Like you're beating a dead horse. Um, but if you're able to like deconstruct somebody else's line of rhetoric or like deconstruct somebody else's joke in a way that's funny, then I think that will reward you for being witty, etc. Yeah, I'll send the slides in the chat real quick. All right, cool. Okay, let's talk about the third level of this, which is authenticity. Your best joke will always be like uniquely written and delivered by you. Like nobody else will be able, or like very few other people at least, because this would be a good reflection of your personality. It reflects like your setup for the joke, like everything you do for that joke. And the last one is obviously make sure it's respectful. Don't get dropped for your joke. Make fun of yourself if you have to, but not in a way like that is like, offensive to like playing up like a stereotype too much, like that might offend some other people and it'll get you dropped and it's just like not respectful to do. Obviously don't make fun of other people. And if you are making fun of other people, punch up, basically meaning like you're a kid in high school, don't make fun of like other kids in high school. Make fun of like a celebrity or a politician who like generally gets made fun of. And then like obviously don't like make the insult too personal. Just like, some like pop culture reference or like whatever. But obviously also make sure your judges get it. Okay, here's some good examples that I think like accomplish all like four criteria of like a joke that is like funny. Um, Here's me at Harvard on high speed rail. Hey Arnav.
If the human race is not carbon neutral by 2035, we will reach our maximum threshold of temperature increase of 2.7 degrees. The next generation, before they are even born, could be the last generation ever to walk this planet. Let's build a train! Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see why that doesn't make a lot of sense. Fail this legislation. I want
Okay, this is a bill on high speed rail, by the way. I'm not like yelling, let's build a train on like car seat or something. Okay, so real quick, let's just do like a little group discussion. What did we think was like good about that joke? What criteria did it fulfill? Why is my slideshow not loading?
It was very random.
It was random, right? So what criteria does that fulfill?
Out of pocket.
Yeah, like out of pocket, unexpected, right? Like people don't laugh at jokes if it's expected. Let's talk about like the setup of that a little bit. What do we think was good? It was specific, relevant, yeah. What was the setup of that joke?
You went from really serious to funny.
Yeah, people didn't expect that, right? People expected like a very like the tone of it to be like very serious and stuff. Make fun of the AF, yeah. Okay, let me share my screen again because my slideshow died. All right, I think another good one is Raghav Ramki last year at Nats. This one is like the bill is the sponsored like the state sponsored immigrant visas for any reason. So like it's just to encourage immigration. I think this one is a funny joke.
Legislation. I'm not going to lie to you. Today's legislation isn't going to solve our whole labor shortage because, yay, immigrants. If it was that simple, I have 100 uncles ready to chip in. The fact of the matter is that today's legislation.
I think this is funny because like it's just like a little out of pocket. I think like there's like a stereotype about some immigrants having like large families. So like he makes fun of that a little bit. Like he pushes the envelope on like what's like conventionally allowed in Congress, if y'all could hear it. But I think that's a good example of like a joke that's just like witty, right? Like it makes fun of his side a little bit, makes fun of the other side. Like, okay, let's be realistic here, guys. Like it's not fixing like all of our stuff. And the comment on like the booze cruise stuff that he did on the first speech, do not like talk about like alcohol in front of like judges and stuff. Like if you guys aren't aware, like Raghav made a joke about like a booze cruise on like the first Bill Carsey. Like it's like think about like the setting real quick, right? Like your judges are all middle-aged people. The setting is like a formal academic competition. Don't talk about a booze cruise in front of them. Like the crowd loved it, obviously, because like they're our age. But like obviously the adults like do not condone like drunk driving. Um, so it was like not a very strategic joke. Okay, next one is on ranked choice voting at TOC. So let's look at this one.
First, I want to disprove ranked choice voting solvency by directly disproving Senator Mishra and DePaul's Alaska theory about how Alaska used ranked choice voting to decrease polarization. Senator Mishra and DePaul look at this way too generically. They say just because we implemented ranked choice voting, people had elected more moderate candidates. But let's look at why they didn't elect the extremist candidates. The two extremist candidates were Sarah Palin and Tor Shibaka. Let's look at what their policies actually were. The New York Times writes in June 2021 that Shibaka openly supports conversion therapy. Okay, yeah, we're not off to a great start. The Guardian furthers in December of 2021. Sarah Palin said she would only get vaccinations over her dead body. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, Sarah, but when you don't get vaccinations, that's how you end up with that.
So that is the second joke I thought was funny. And I'll talk about why I thought that one was strategic, by the way. Okay, yeah, quick disclaimer at the bottom, like I'm not the only funny person in Congress. These are just the examples like I thought of and like pasted in the slideshow. All right, here's my process for coming up with jokes. I shower and then I get like good like thoughts in there. I stay up really late sometimes, like 2 a.m., and then I have good clarity of mind. That's where I got the Sarah Palin joke from. And I come up with jokes in round. All my like most of my jokes from Harvard, I just came up in the round. I was just feeling creative that day, not sure why. But this will undoubtedly produce the best results if you're somebody who's just quick on your feet and can think of jokes. Um, and then like it will produce the best jokes because it's relevant. Yeah. And then here's some other ways you can come up with jokes if you really, really just want to have a joke in there just to keep things like relevant. You could have like a canned list of jokes that you use on a lot of bills, sort of like what extempers do. You can look for inspiration on like political satire sites like The Onion, like Stephen Colbert, stuff like that. Like I think extempers do this a lot more because it's basically ingrained in the event like that your AGD needs to be funny and have a joke. But I still prefer this method a lot less because it's not relevant, nor is it authentic, at least not as much as it could be. Um, yeah. And then wait, let me talk about this TOC joke now. I think like this was strategic not only because of like, the joke itself I thought was pretty funny. But also like that bill in particular did like three different things on like changing the way like we vote for our House of Representatives very, very significantly. It does ranked choice voting, and then it does multi-member districts. So now you're voting anywhere from 3 to 5 people per district, and then like it ungerrymanders the U.S. I think that was the three things it did. I'm not quite sure I remember. Um, so it's a lot of things. And then the main negation has basically been like, Alaska has been, pretty partisan, but ranked choice voting fixed it. So then that joke was a good refutation to it. But I think it would have gotten lost on the flow had I not included the joke because the joke was memorable. But the argument in general, I don't think a lot of arguments in the round were generally like memorable aside from like Fidil's arguments. That set me in the top six. And then I placed fourth overall at TOC because I think people remembered the joke and it was persuasive to them in a way that was like explaining the concept of these extremists being so extreme. Like, honestly, the ranked choice voting wasn't the factor that made them win. Like, they were already losing because of how extreme they were in the eyes of the Alaskan people. Yeah, that's why I think the joke was strategic. You can use like a joke like that to basically act as like a refutation. Because at the end of the day, if you laugh at a joke, it was persuasive to you to some degree. And Congress is really just about persuasion. It's not like a ton of flow and stuff. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let me just stress this like one last time. Delivery really, really matters. Um, a big one that I think a lot of people forget is like don't get lost on the speech patterns. A lot of people just give a speech in like the same speech pattern the whole time. It's like the this Congress often forgets blah 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 blah. And then you're like in that speech pattern of up and down and up and down. One, people just don't like listening to it. Two, it's not authentic to who you are. So it's obviously going to be bad for like your jokes. So make sure you're recording yourself and you're delivering your speeches first. And then when you're delivering your jokes, make sure you're changing that variation a little bit, like making people like know that it's a joke. Make sure you're like as loud as you need to be, like flamboyant, like really sell the joke, commit to the bit, whatever you think needs to make the joke funny. Um, yeah. Okay. Okay, wait, I think I have like one more slide. Okay, cool. Here's like some like tips on like how you can write a joke, but like I don't really like I think about the phrasing of my jokes by making sure they're succinct, but make sure like the Sarah Palin joke, right? Like I put this sorry to burst your bubble, like that right after it, because you need to emphasize the parallel structure so that like the setup and the punchline occur in like close enough time. So I'll give you an example of like parallel structure when it works in like regular rhetoric, right? You will say like in the status quo, prescription drugs are a lifeline. This legislation will put their lives on the line or something like that, right? Like you're constructing like sort of parallel structure, like doing a little pun between lifeline and lives on the line, having that like structure so that it's memorable, right? It just like clicks. It's like why we like hearing rhyming in like songs. But moving on to the Sarah Palin example, I quote Sarah Palin saying, I would only get a vaccine over my dead body. Sorry to burst your bubble, Sarah, but when you don't get a vaccine, that is how you end up as a dead body, right? So you have this vaccine dead body part that is still playing into the parallel structure of the previous sentence. And I think like another thing this joke does well is it starts with sorry to burst your bubble, right? Like, and it calls her like Sarah by her first name, not like Representative Palin, which she used to be. Um, but then she obviously lost the election. But like this colloquial language, I think works good because it's like informal and it's the right conversational setup for the informality that you need for a joke. I feel like rarely are jokes supposed to be very, very formal. Even when they are, they're like a little cheeky for like, you know, like the event, the context of the joke. So that's like the parallel structure part of it. Okay, I think that's the last page of my slideshow. We can open the floor up for Q&A. You guys can just ask like general like Q&A questions, but I believe you will get the most out of this if you like share a speech with me that like you think you want to add humor to, um, like that sort of thing, and then we can like workshop like how I write my jokes and then how you can sort of add your own flair to it, etc., stuff like that. Oh, hey Arnav, what's up?
Okay, I have a question. Okay, so one thing that I always struggle with is because I think you are the best like humor person, Congress. But one thing I always struggle with is like whenever I make my jokes, they're always like a bit too like iffy. But I feel like those are the jokes that like I get the most laughs on, like the TOC, like a fair joke.
Oh,
So
like
how do you
the
like?
president like secretary one, right?
Yeah, so like I thought that like people laughed. I thought that was a good joke, and I did that like in state finals as well. Like, how do you like toe the line where like it's funny, it's like a little bit, but it's like not
Yeah.
too much? Because I always fuck up on that or mess up on that.
Mm. I just wouldn't be like too funny. Like I think there's rare instances with like the Sarah Palin joke where people don't get offended because we all know like Sarah Palin is like, you know, like not the smartest person and like an anti-vaxxer, like somebody who we can make fun of like that, right? Like if you have a joke on that with like I wouldn't even say Trump anymore because like you never know now. Like America's so polarized, you never know who they're gonna vote for. So I wouldn't make fun of like Trump too much. But actually no, debate is liberal enough that you can probably like safely make fun of Trump. Depends on what state you're in though. But like honestly like do not be too funny like if like your best jokes are iffy and I agree like if you were at like a round robin those would really hit right but like I just wouldn't make them because like you run the risk of just like offending like a lot of judges or like it pushes the line too much like I think like most of my Nats finals jokes were pretty safe. Like I think like that's sort of like the broad line that we should go for. You know, like I think that's like your standard joke in Congress that does well. Like um on the carbon tax one, like I give like the serious intro and say like, oh, don't be too scared, guys. That headline's from BuzzFeed. So like sort of on that level, but I feel like anything more than that, or like it gets a little risky. Can you win the one with only humorous rhetoric, or do you need to rope it into a more serious conclusion? Depends on the round, honestly. I think I think doing only humorous rhetoric like makes you look like less serious, right? It like takes away from your ethos. I think Congress like you need like ethos, pathos, logos like you learn in AP Lang. Like you need like all three of those appeals, and if you do too much humor, it's going to take away from your ethos. I think a huge part of like Congress or like any like appeal that politicians have is they try to look like they really care about like the people, about like the topic at hand. And if you only do humor, even like there's two sides of this, right? Like one, you can do like really goofy humor and then it makes you look bad. You could also do like really like dry cut, like sarcastic humor, but it makes you look also bad in the way that you don't care about like the bill. So don't only do humorous rhetoric. I think if you are to do humorous rhetoric, you can actually add some serious rhetoric in there. Just like keep them in separate halves of the speech. So in the middle, when you're talking about your arguments, it'll like flow into that. Yeah, serious conclusions I think are fine. You can have humorous conclusions, but I think like the strat I probably like better is like if there's a like session with two bills, like give like a funny like early round speech that's like lighthearted on like the bill that would suit it, and then have humor later. I think humor on serious topics is fine as long as it's like restrained, and like it's attacking like concepts that are very abstract. Like on a bill of like government or corruption, keep it purely in the realm of government or corruption. Don't let it touch like the humanitarian impact where like, it is a very serious issue and you shouldn't make jokes about it. Okay, Arnav's question, how did you come up with your acupuncture joke at Nat's final? I don't think the joke was too funny. I think like it was more of how I delivered it, like where I'm like, okay, context for the joke. Basically, it's like Medicare for all, and then like the bill basically says anything that the public sector does, the private sector can't do. And then in the bill, it says it covers everything from like long-term care to like dental to like vision to stuff like that, right? So I'm like, guys, that's everything. So what's left for the private sector? I don't know, like acupuncture. And like I literally say it like that in round because it's like conversational and it's like, like it's funny, right? It's like an unexpected step away from my traditional delivery. So, okay, do you think referring back to your AGD throughout your speech makes it more memorable or not? Referring back to it, like just saying the joke again, no, that is not, or it's memorable because I think some people will remember cringing at it. So I don't think you should do that. But like if you can like further the narrative a little bit, or like you make a joke about something and say, "Oh, I was wrong. It's even worse." For example, right? Like if you make a joke like that, throughout your speech and you set up a narrative like that, like setting up a narrative and rehashing a joke from your intro are two different things. Yeah. Um, could you use humor in ref, for instance? Of course, Representative blank, our aid is deemed as ineffective. We've been throwing it around like Oprah. I think that's pretty funny. Like you could do that. Yeah, I think like obviously like it will be strategic to the extent like obviously you will need to back a warrant after that, but it will be memorable in the minds of judges. So just remember, if you're being memorable and persuasive, right? If your judges laugh at a joke and they say like, okay, this is really good at ridiculing the other side, right? Is sort of what they're signaling when they laugh at a joke, then I think that's good for your persuasion. Um, yeah. So, and then like the TOC example I talked about earlier, like you can just use like humor as a ref sometimes in like a messy round. What's the best way to use humor to interact with other people's rhetoric? If somebody gave like a really, really serious speech, like I gave like a really serious speech on West Africa and you try to like meme the rhetoric on that, it won't go well for you just because like it makes you look like disrespectful and like flippant. Um, humor to interact with other people's rhetoric. If it's like lighthearted rhetoric, if they like make a joke or like you're just memeing like their statistic, yeah, then like I guess you could do it, but just like honestly, like evaluate how you yourself felt when you heard that other person's rhetoric. Like if it was just like a one-liner or like you're trying to, or they were exaggerating, really hammering home a point about like a statistic in their entire speech. Like if I think the best time to do it is when they're like a little bit annoying, right? And then just tease them a little bit for it with your joke. And then you won't look too bad in the round because they looked worse. Okay, let's answer David's question. I always really liked how Raga switched from a humorous undertone to a potent conclusion, no glaze. How does he do the switch so seamlessly? It's not about doing the switch like ha 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 funny. Okay, let's be serious. Like it's never like that. You will have like haha funnies, and then you will have like an analytical period where you're like toning it down a little bit. Like you need like a cool down period. People don't realize like a lot of times when you're doing jokes, like it will you can't have like the loud thing and then immediately go down to it. I think the cycle sort of goes like loud funny joke, pause, let them laugh at it, then like do some analytical stuff, let it tone down, and then start driving the emotion back up when you need to give like something emotional like that. Um, I think a good example of this, unfortunately, this wasn't recorded, was my second speech at Harvard on pharmaceuticals. Um, but yeah. Okay, Tonmei, do you adapt to give or not give jokes based on what your panel looks like? At a Harvard Outround, I chose to not use humor because the judges were a bunch of old white dudes and I didn't know if it'd land or hurt me. Um, Honestly, like you like just that's why I would like write jokes, like have jokes prepared that are like not like offensive. They're like amusing, like they'll get like a chuckle out of everybody, but not like a big laugh out of anyone. I'm not gonna read that one out loud, but yeah, that's true. Yeah. But okay, yeah, that's just me DMing Arnav. But like, yeah, I think you might want to adjust your jokes a little bit. If you've like a very young judge panel, you might just want to take up more risks with humor. For like old white dudes, just like I think the Sarah Palin joke I give like works a little bit. I think what really matters more there is you're really carrying like this very professional sort of persona. Like if you're making jokes, look up how Ronald Reagan delivers jokes, like deliver them like not like yelling it. I wouldn't yell "Let's build a train" if I had like an 80-year-old as my judge. I think like they would have a heart attack at that. Just like deliver it a little bit more like nonchalantly, like a little bit like sarcastic or like knowing that it's like tongue in cheek. I just got DM'd another question from Seisha Mainali. So how would you personally attack someone else's rhetoric if they use something more serious while your personality is different? Fidel called you the goat yesterday, by the way. Thanks, Fidel. Something more serious while your personality is different. If they use something more serious while your personality is different, you don't always have to attack their rhetoric. Like I don't know if they gave like some really fire rhetoric, like I low-key don't think you should do that. Like it'll just make you look like disrespectful and like ignorant of like a serious topic they gave. Like honestly, like you could say like sorry senator, like this just isn't true, like if they were like really annoying about something, right? And you're right, like if you were right and you could disprove them like that, I think that's the farthest you should go with it. It's situational, like I could like come up with something if you guys like gave me like a line of rhetoric that somebody else gave, or like if you want me to try and come up with a joke, no guarantees that I can. My excuse is that it's early in the morning. Okay, let's move on to Kelly's question. Is it true that you're the eighth leg? Yes. Okay, David Haynes' question. Let's say that you make a joke that doesn't land. Is there any way to recover in the eyes of a judge? Just keep giving the speech, dude. Like, like that's the best you can do. Just keep giving the speech. If you want to recover, then like I don't know, like it depends on the joke. Like if you really like committed to the bit and they still didn't laugh, like that's tough. Um, but yeah, usually like also I wouldn't make jokes unless like you are in a big final round because you have spectators to laugh for you. If you're competing in a round, rarely will you notice that like you're giving a big laugh at somebody's joke, even if it is actually like a really funny joke. Unless it's like a really, really funny joke that you would laugh at it. And in which case I think that joke usually like sort of toes the line too much and like it references like Gen Z humor too much. You're not gonna laugh at it, right? Because like you're sitting in final round or like whatever round, you're nervous, you're just trying to like T6 or win or whatever. You're not going to laugh at it. But the spectators will laugh at it. And then even if like your joke isn't that funny, it will still have more laughter than it does in like an earlier round. You'll still hear like some chuckles, and that'll be like more than enough for you to keep going. Um, yeah. So I think like if you are trying to do humor, don't do it in like an earlier like quarter like sem round. Definitely not prelims. Prelims like people just don't laugh at jokes in prelims. I don't know why. They're like all trying to break, they're all nervous, whatever. But like I wouldn't do it in prelims. But after that, when you have like spectators, even if like you think your joke bombs, it definitely won't bomb as much. And like a joke that would have like bombed in quarters and sems where everybody's nervous, the judges are flowing, right? Then like it probably would have worked in finals. So don't give like jokes without spectators. What if you make a joke, all the representatives laugh, but the judge shakes his head in disapproval and writes a comment? Sometimes, I mean, the judges are like, oh, wow, that was so funny. I'm shaking my head. Oh, that's cheeky of you. If the judge shakes his head in disapproval, I mean, I guess you're cooked, like, read his comment, a little more seriously, and then, you know, evaluate what sort of jokes you're going to keep making from that point on. But yeah, your jokes ideally should be making everybody like chuckle a little bit, right? That's the ideal point. Don't make anyone like any like age demographic laugh too hard. Yeah, you just got to read the paradigms. That's totally true. At MLK, I said like sweet King Daddy LeBron in a speech, and I went like 8899 from half the judge panel. I went 22244 from the other panel. Yeah, Arnav remembers that round. Do I write out jokes beforehand or come up with them in rap? I do both. I do it in the shower. That's true. Yes. I do both. Whichever one like works out better, whichever like is funnier when I come up with it, I just do that. Social justice warrior. True. Anyone want to like share a speech and like we can just workshop jokes? I think this is a good opportunity because like Arnav's not officially lecturing, but he could probably give you some like advice on jokes as well. He does some pretty good. Is there any time you shouldn't make a joke in your AGD? Like if the topic is too serious? Yes, on some serious foreign aid bills, I'm not sure if like you should do that. Just word of caution about that. I think AGD wise, not necessarily. It's about setting the tone for your speech when jokes are gonna hit. Like if you can set the tone right with like a funny AGD, then like you're fine. Aaron, I see you're raising your hand. What's up, man?
Yeah. So yesterday we were doing a bill on kicking Turkey out of NATO, and I used like an Among Us kind of like start to it. Can we workshop that?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Okay, we
So
have 20 minutes left. I think like four people just sent their speeches in chat. So like, okay, five people. All right, let's like do like 5 minutes of speech. So everybody just send your links in chat, share with helioslung@gmail.com. And then we'll go for it.
Yes, you have the most popular breakout room. It's very impressive.
Oh, yesterday is the least impressive. I think it's just like people rotate around. All right, okay, let's start with this. Okay, I think this sort of connects a little bit. Um, this might work depending on your judge panel. Old judges will absolutely get pissed at this. Like they're, I don't know. Old people are just like sometimes pretty miserable about hearing jokes. So this one is like sort of like a yikes for like some old judges. Okay, it's pretty funny that you're speaking in Russian here. Yeah. Um, okay, and then I don't think you should be referencing this here. Like if you're talking about killing civilians, like do not reference like your joke about like kicking puppies. It's just like it's bad for like the tone of the speech. Let's see. Okay, and then I'll just give a comment on the argumentation of this. I think this is like allowing NATO into Ukraine, like I guess extending the invite on the part of the United States. Um, I think these are sort of like cop-out arguments. Like you should more talk about like how Russia would react purely from our extending the invitation to Ukraine. It's not just about like whether or not they will actually join. It's like let's say they don't join, then what? Like somebody's gonna go, "Oh, what's the net harm of passing the bill?" Just like show them like Putin's gonna like go nuclear or whatever. Like because they think like it's like the West becoming too involved, but like that should be where the argumentation centers around. Um Yeah, I think you sort of talk about that here. We intensify the war. You should spend more time talking about this. Um, yeah. But yeah, I think like change the kicking puppies a little bit. I'm trying to think of like any other opportunities for like jokes. If I come up with any, I'll come back to the speech. But like I'm speed running, like reviewing everybody's speeches right now. All right, up next, this was David Haynes, right? Then we'll do Jaden's. Okay. Is this like a fable? Like, is this a well-known fable? Because I've never heard of the villager and the snake. If you can like attach it to like in the Celtic fable, the villager and the snake, that way it would contextualize it better. Okay, wait. I wouldn't say like a snake is representative sing. Like, okay, like chill out a little bit. The gang cartel is like, yeah, sure. I think this is like sort of like a difficult tie-in. If you're talking about like corrupt governments, dictators, right? Then um, you would say like I think a better way to tie this in maybe is like under today's or like why would we expect a different result with the corrupt dictators under today's legislation? Some way that implies that they're snaky and corrupt. Fill this bill so we don't strengthen the Latin American gangs. Um, okay, hold on. Like you're talking about something very, very serious here. I'm not sure we should be using like jokes here. Um, mm, I think if you are to give this speech, push like more of the impacts toward the end. And if you are to make a joke in your speech at all, then I would just avoid talking about like a serious topic like rape at all. Like I would just push that completely out of the speech. Just don't like say something that's like as that might be as emotionally charged and like sensitive for people like that. Um, but yeah, like a joke I suggested a couple times to like previous people, like if you're talking about cartels or like corruption or like why they aren't getting arrested, then like you could say like the judges are corrupt. It's like having me like, be the judge, jury, and executioner for my best friend. Like bro code obviously says I should not send them to prison. Something like that. And if I hear that in round from any of you here, because you decided to steal that joke, I'll know. So, all right, another joke here about like leadership vacuums. I think like this is like sort of where you should put the jokes because the leadership vacuums, like this is like an international relations or like political science sort of like more abstract concept where you should be going for jokes like that. Um, you could think of an analogy here, but like unless it's like a really, really funny analogy, I don't know if like a speech on like Haiti should really be like um the like advisable just because it's like it's a serious topic. All right. Okay, let's do Matthew's speech now.
It's like the second one, the joke that I was asking about.
Here?
Yeah.
Mm, okay. Okay, I think you have a good setup for this. Like you're sort of like and then like you would say like I'll just add this here, like maybe it's not totally true. But like sort of like the logic flipping here is like that the solution of a problem caused the problem itself, right? So
Yeah.
like that's sort of what you want to meme here. Like vaccines caused COVID. What's like another one you can think of? Um, just like it's usually good to have like a rule of three.
Okay.
Can you think of anything else?
Um, I'm trying.
Plastic surgery caused the Kardashians.
I feel like it low-key did cause them though. I don't know. I feel like plastic surgery is more like memed on as a thing than like an actual like valid solution like that. Okay, while you're thinking of this, I think like sort of you understand like the structure of this. Let's go to Rohan Jain's. Like I just have to speed run this because like 8 people sent their speeches.
Yo, you can go to Tanmay first. He sent it before mine, and my speech has like zero humor in anyways.
Okay. All right. First thing I would solve about this, Ishan Savla. What round is this? Is this like last
It
chance? Is
was
this
digital speech and debate
TOC? Yeah,
series
digital TOC
three.
2, right?
It was digital TOC three, I think. Might
Okay.
have been two.
Okay. The first thing I would fix if you want to inject a speech in here is your overall tone needs to change a lot. Like you need to switch into a conversational tone, but the entire tone of the speech is very congressy, like fundamental question. Like this is very congressy, like sort of lingo. Like the real beauty of today's legislation. It's not like political congressy either. It's straight up Congress the offense sort of lingo, and it's harder to inject humor into something like this. Um, what's the bill on?
It's getting rid of the buffer zone that prevented oil companies from drilling on the federal public lands in like the Chaco Canyon Valley.
Okay. I do not know too much about that aspect of it, so I don't know if I can help you. Um, but I guess like hopefully this isn't like a cop out. I might come back to it if I think of something. But like general um advice for you is like the reason why it's easy for me to come up with something for like carbon tax is like this is like a little more like like and I'm sure, right? Like that's like a little like more conversational. It's easier to like put a joke
Mhm.
there. So for
Yeah.
this, like make sure you have like conversationality first.
Okay.
Something a little more informal so like you sort of like ease the joke into it. All right, time for
Right.
Tanmei's speech. Okay, we have one more from Ox, so I'll spend like 3 minutes on this. Okay. I think this is sort of like it's clear that you're forcing the joke a little bit. I mean, like obviously, like you're trying to make a simile here. It's like funny. I think it's a funny premise, but like try to make it a little bit more indirect. I think maybe you could set it up like Loki series, like invasive species invade our communities. They steal our resources. They decimate our environment. Just last week, this kid I told who couldn't sit with us stole my peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something like that, right? Like something along the lines of that if you want to write that down. Um,
Okay.
okay. Oh, this is good. I think I moved this up to the intro. And then it's like, okay, maybe I'm being over dramatic. They didn't kill the environment, but they did kill the vibes, something like that. I like that. I like that. Um, let's see. Yeah, and then after that, I think you should just focus on your solvency. And then yeah, I think like this is fine. All right, let's move on to auctions. The great sage Peter Griffin. Okay. I think referencing like Peter Griffin like this might not work for some of your older judges. Um, a lot of intros, it's like American philosopher Kanye West, like it doesn't like totally work because like I don't know. I just don't know why those wait, hold on. There's definitely a reason for like why I don't think they're funny. But like I wouldn't like reference like some of these jokes like this. Yeah, and then I feel like trying to like force it like this, like it's a little too like forced here. You're trying to like say like great sage Peter Griffin, but then 2 sentences later you're being extremely serious now. So I don't think this is like a good place to do that. If this is minimum wage, this is minimum wage, right? Maybe you could talk about like if you have friends in college, like talk about like their spending habits and like, like
It's it's like relocating immigrants to
oh my
like
bad. I
or
thought this was
yeah.
okay. All right. Oh, reloading immigrants to states that need it. Is it like Harvard prelims?
Yeah, no, it's like rural like neighborhoods. So
Okay,
like
okay.
underpopulated states.
Mm, I don't know. I think like a lot of jokes you can make on this might be a little too risky. So I'm not totally sure about this. I can tell you what not to do, but like I'll let you know when I think of something to do. So let me hop on Aaron's speech, the most recent one sent in chat. Hmm. I think you're trying to make like a joke here, but you're not pushing it enough to the point where it's like you're giving yourself an opportunity to be like goofy enough when you're delivering it. Like this is cringe, but like, oh, Turkey's been looking kind of sus recently. Like, I feel like that's like even more informal and something you could like adapt to like this Among Us premise that like allows you to deliver it a little bit more. But I think the reason why this joke isn't working as well as it could is because you're not pushing it enough. Like, if you like deliver that in like a like a sarcastic tone, like, oh, I know this is cringe, and like your judge panel is the right judge panel, they might laugh at that. But if you're talking about Among Us in front of like 80-year-olds, I don't think they know what it is. Okay, Seisha Main Ali, another speech. Um, okay, okay. Do not talk about this in front of old judges. It's only for three if tournament. I don't know what that means. It's only for EIF. Oh, EIF tournament. Um, okay. I think there are funnier stories you could pull about Trump. You could do the entire thing like Ishan Quasi has had a good intro. He told me about an Emory finals. Like 2 years ago, a storm in Texas caused the energy grid to black out, forcing one of my constituents, Ted Cruz, to go all the way to Cancun just for some, energy. Like it's funny like that, right? Like if you want to make fun of politics, like I think that's the better way to do it rather than like this. I feel like it's a little risky. Okay, Sahana has a speech. Okay, I have like 800 speeches pulled up. I think like people can see this joke coming. That's the problem with it. Hmm. I
Hey,
think maybe
Helios,
you
you're
could.
just doing feedback. Is there any way you could like stop the recording just so the file's not so big?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure. I'll just stop.
Thanks.